In a world where appearances can be deceiving, Emma and David's story reveals the complex truth behind a facade of happiness. Discover what is hidden in the life of the family that everyone envies, but no one really knows. In the beating heart of the metropolis stood the university, a veritable sanctuary of knowledge and innovation. This place was not just a physical space for education, it was a vibrant ecosystem where young people from all over came together, bringing with them grandiose dreams and the hope of making their mark on the world. It was against this backdrop of intellectual and cultural effervescence that Emma and David crossed paths for the first time, two students destined to go on a journey together that neither of them could have foreseen. Emma, in her early 20s, was the embodiment of enthusiasm and passion. Her interest in pedagogy was no coincidence. It was the result of a deep conviction that education had the power to transform lives. The daughter of a modest family, where education was always seen as the key to a better future, Emma carried with her a burning desire to contribute to a world where every child would have the opportunity to reach their full potential. Her face, often lit up with a radiant smile, was a reflection of her unwavering determination and the joy she felt in following her calling. David, on the other hand, carried a very different burden of expectations. At 25, he was already acutely aware of the legacy he was expected to carry on. As the youngest son of a renowned judge, the choice to pursue a legal career seemed not only natural, but predestined. However, this decision was not without its internal conflicts. David grew up watching the weight of responsibility and expectation on his father's shoulders, and although he deeply admired the work and impact a jurist could have on society, he couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps there was another path for him. His introspective nature and tendency to question convention often brought him into conflict with family expectations. It was on an autumn afternoon, on the way to the Central Library, that Emma and David met. Emma, with a stack of books on educational theories balanced precariously under one arm, was visibly struggling to open the heavy library door without dropping her precious cargo. David, who was leaving the library at that very moment, saw the scene and, driven by an impulse of chivalry, rushed over to help her. Emma's gratitude was immediate, her smile a spark in the autumn twilight. "Thank you," she said, her eyes meeting his. It was a simple moment, but loaded with meaning, the first thread of what would become the fabric of their intertwined lives. In the days and weeks that followed, that chance meeting at the library door turned into deep conversations about dreams, aspirations, and, inevitably, the doubts and challenges they faced. Emma openly shared her vision for a more inclusive and transformative education, while David opened up about the pressures of living up to a family legacy and his search for his own purpose. The university, with its diversity of thought and constant effervescence of ideas, was the fertile soil in which Emma and David's relationship sprouted and grew. Amid studies and discoveries, between books and debates, what began as a friendship based on mutual respect and admiration evolved over time into something deeper. They became confidants, supporting each other in joys and challenges, and eventually realized that what they had was more than just a friendship. It was love, born of understanding and sharing a common desire to leave the world a little better than they found it. And so began the story of Emma and David, two hearts brought together by fate against a backdrop of dreams and aspirations, ready to face whatever the future held together. As the honeymoon glow faded, Emma and David found themselves facing the reality of building a life together, far from the university halls where their dreams seemed so simple and straightforward. They settled into a modest apartment in a friendly condominium, where the laughter of children playing created a constant soundtrack to their days. It was a humble beginning, but full of hope. Emma, with her inexhaustible energy and passion for education, plunged headlong into her new role as an assistant at a high school. Every day, she left the house with a sparkle of determination in her eyes, ready to inspire young minds and make a difference. Her commitment didn't go unnoticed, and she quickly became a beloved figure among students and coworkers alike. Education was more than a career for Emma. It was a vocation, a chance to shape the future, one child at a time. David, on the other hand, faced a more tortuous path. The pressure to follow in his father's footsteps in a legal career weighed on him like a persistent shadow. Despite his best efforts, the passion he hoped to feel for the law never materialized. Family expectations, combined with his own insecurity about the future, created a maze of doubts and hesitations. Eventually, David's internal struggle led him to make a difficult but liberating decision. He abandoned his legal career to pursue a new path, temporarily relying on the proceeds of his father's inheritance. This choice, although necessary, brought with it a new set of challenges and questions about identity and purpose. The birth of their two children, first a vibrant and curious boy, and then a sweet and observant girl, marked the beginning of a new chapter in Emma and David's lives. The boy, with his inexhaustible energy, seemed to inherit Emma's adventurous spirit, while the girl, with her attentive gaze and calm smile, shared David's introspection. The family dynamic revolved around these two little personalities, with David finding in his son a chance to redirect his unfulfilled aspirations, and Emma seeing in her daughter a soulmate in the search for knowledge and understanding. The condominium where they lived became more than just a home. It was a community. The friendships they formed with other parents, especially with a couple whose daughter became the girl's best friend, enriched their lives. These bonds offered not only support and companionship, but also moments of shared joy and solidarity in difficulties. Weekend barbecues, children's birthday parties, and chance encounters on the estate playground wove a tapestry of memories that sustained Emma and David in times of doubt. Against this backdrop of challenges and achievements, joys and uncertainties, Emma and David continued to build their life together. Each day brought with it the promise of new lessons and opportunities for growth. As they struggled with the complexities of marriage, parenthood, and the search for meaning, they supported each other, remembering the dreams they shared at that university years ago. It was a life in the making, imperfect and challenging, but deeply rooted in love and hope for better days. As the seasons passed, the leaves changed color and fell, only to sprout again, an endless cycle that seemed to echo the increasingly monotonous routine of Emma and David's life. The facade of happiness they carefully maintained began to show signs of wear and tear, superficial cracks that, over time, deepened into visible fissures. David found himself caught in the grip of a silent depression, a gray fog that obscured his joy and enthusiasm. The weight of unfulfilled expectations and the burden of an uncertain future led him to seek refuge in consumerism. Packages constantly arrived on his doorstep, each promising a dose of ephemeral happiness that quickly dissipated, leaving behind only emptiness and guilt. This compulsive behavior wasn't just an attempt to fill the emptiness inside. It was also a symptom of her struggle to find a purpose that resonated with her true self. This rift in her identity reverberated through the family structure, manifesting itself in the unequal treatment of her two sons. The boy, with his liveliness and curiosity, became the focus of all David's attention and expectations. It was as if, through him, David was vicariously trying to achieve the dreams he himself had left behind. The girl, although equally loved, found herself inadvertently in her brother's shadow, a disparity that did not go unnoticed by Emma's sensitive and observant eyes. Emma, for her part, felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. The long hours at work, combined with the responsibility of being the main carer for the children and the home, left her exhausted, both physically and emotionally. The lack of support from David, who was lost in his online shopping and his fruitless search for purpose, only exacerbated her sense of isolation. The gulf between them grew day by day, transforming a marriage once filled with love and companionship into one marked by distance and disconnection. In search of solace, Emma found a friendly ear in her neighbor, a woman who had become more than just an acquaintance from the condominium. She was a confidant, someone with whom Emma could share her frustrations, fears, and sorrows without judgment. These conversations, often punctuated by tears and understanding smiles, offered Emma a glimmer of hope, a reminder that she was not alone in her struggle. It was during one of these outbursts that Emma had a moment of disturbing clarity. She realized how distant she and David had become, living more like roommates than a couple in love. They shared a home, but not their lives. They coexisted, but didn't connect. The realization was a painful blow, awakening her to the gravity of her situation. The fissure in their marriage was no longer a simple crack to be ignored. It was an abyss that threatened to swallow up the happiness and love that had once blossomed between them. Emma knew that something needed to change, but the uncertainty of how to mend what had been broken weighed on her like an impending storm. Her family's future hung on a delicate thread, and the next step they took could well determine whether they would be able to find their way back to each other or whether the distance between them would become insurmountable. Faced with the crossroads that lay ahead, Emma and David found themselves at a turning point. The suggestion of family therapy, brought up during an intimate and vulnerable conversation with Emma's friend, was not just an idea, it was a beacon of hope in the midst of the storm that had become their relationship. Despite their initial discomfort at the idea of exposing their deepest wounds to a stranger, the memory of the happy times they had shared and the love that still pulsed, albeit weakened by adversity, convinced them to take this courageous step. With reservations, but united by a thread of hope, they began their journey of family therapy. The process was not easy. Sitting face to face, with the therapist as mediator, the first sessions were marked by tense silences and exchanges of glances, laden with unspoken words. Each session was a descent into the depths of their hearts, an invitation to face the painful truths they had avoided for so long. David, for the first time, confronted the magnitude of his depression and the impact of his consumerism, not only on his own life, but on the lives of those he loved. He shared his struggles with identity and the pressure of living in the shadow of a family legacy he never wanted for himself. By verbalizing these issues, he not only acknowledged his flaws, but also began to understand the source of his behavior, paving the way for healing. Emma, for her part, expressed the depth of her loneliness and exhaustion, talking about the weight of carrying the responsibilities of home and motherhood alone. And David's lack of emotional support was liberating. She recognized that, in her quest to be the family fortress, she had isolated herself, denying herself the vulnerability and support she also needed. As the sessions progressed, the therapy revealed not only the flaws and wounds, but also the strength and love that still existed between them. Small gestures of care and understanding began to reintroduce themselves into their daily lives. Learning to communicate their needs and frustrations in a healthy way, Emma and David rediscovered the importance of supporting each other, not just as parents or partners, but as the best friends they had once been. Family therapy also extended to their children, creating a safe space for them to express their feelings and realize that, despite the difficulties, they were a family united by love and the will to overcome obstacles together. These sessions helped to alleviate the unequal treatment perceived by the children, paving the way for a new family dynamic where each member felt valued and loved. This journey of rediscovery and reconciliation was not only marked by tears and confrontation. There were also moments of laughter, shared memories of happier times, and the creation of new memories. Slowly, the emotional distance between Emma and David began to diminish, giving way to a new closeness, forged in shared vulnerability and a renewed commitment to building a future together. The family therapy process proved to be a transformative journey for Emma, David, and their children. Although the road ahead still had its challenges, they were now walking together, armed with the tools of communication, understanding, and above all, a reaffirmed love that promised to guide them through the storms. In their search for resolution, they found something even more precious: the promise of a fresh start.